Welcome back. Beautiful Saturday afternoon. No, it's kind of late, but today we have one of the best fights of the year. It's the BMF of Max Blessed Holloway versus Charles Du Bronx Oliveira. Now, why is this so special? This card is kind of average. A lot of people have been hating on it, which I get it, right? This is just the guys are kind of carrying this event. The main event with Kyle Borrallo versus Ryan Ritter isn't that fun because they're pretty good fighters, just not very exciting. However, on this presentation, I'll go over the main card that involves with Gregory Black Obama, Brazilian Obama Rodriguez, or Robocop technically. That's his nickname. Bruno Ferreira, which is a unnecessary rematch, but I guess they had no one else, which I will make a further video about how the White House and most of these numbered card events in the past 3 or 4 years has been going on a downhill trend. However, moving on. Now we got Drew Dober versus Michael Johnson. If you know, you understand that anytime Drew Dober fights a minority fighter, that boy goes insane. But we still got another vet of Michael Johnson going on a 3-fight winning streak with his most recent an impressive win against Daniel Zahuber. Now we got Rob Font, the passing of the guard, a veteran in the bantamweight, versus an up-and-coming Raul Rosas Jr., a Mexican star from the United States that with promising future being the youngest signed UFC fighter coming in. And now the co-main event, Kyle Borrallo trying to come after his loss against Imavov, and Reina de Ritter having a very piss-poor performance against Brandon Allen. However, he had won 4 fights in the span of one single year. We're going to see if Reina de Ritter does not follow through his nickname, the Reiner, the Quitter. Now, we're going through the main event, Max Holloway versus Charles Oliveira. Starting off with Gregory Robocop Rodriguez versus Bruno Ferreira. They fought a while back, a couple of years ago actually, recently. And this was one of those insane because Bruno Ferreira finished Robocop in the very first round by a counter left. The one thing I would say about Robocop, even though he is big and tough, he does not have a strong chin. Since then, his only loss was against the Jared Cannonier, who put him out in the round 4. And Gregory Rodriguez is notoriously known to get gassed out towards the end of the rounds. He is big. He is very strong for that, middleweight division. He's 6'3". He has to cut a lot, which does drain his chin and his weight. However, Bruno Ferreira also, in his last fight, he did win. He beat against Marvin Vettori. Not a great win since Marvin Vettori has been knocked out of the rankings and he's kind of been in a downward trend. But, Bruno Ferreira fought against Jackson McVeigh, fought against Aron Metrosyan. He did lose against Abus Magomedov. He did beat Dustin, and he beat Phil Hayes. So he is on a strong run right now. However, do I think this is going to be a repeat from the previous fight? Not gonna lie. I do think Bruno is going to catch Robocop. Right now, he has the momentum going in. His only 2 losses was against Nursultan and Abus. And ever since then, he has been beating people. And he looks extremely shredded on his weigh-ins. This dude looks extremely disciplined. It looks like he's been focused recently. He's on that win. And again, I don't think this was a necessary rematch. However, I guess they're trying to prop up Robocop as well, or have Bruno Ferreira here crack in the top 10. My official prediction is I think Bruno knocks Gregor Rodriguez again. He's going to finish him in the first or second round. This is a 3-round fight, but a Robocop draining. Bruno has power. Most of his wins are coming from a knockout, all in the first or second round. So my official prediction goes down with Bruno Ferreira by knockout on the first or second round. Moving on, we have what I probably call it is going to be the fight of the night. This is a well-beloved fight for those who know, you know. Drew Dober and Michael Johnson, vets in the game. I mean, look at their record. 28-15, 25-19. What they combined have over almost 80 fights. They've been in the UFC for such a long time. It's so insane they have never crossed paths together. And now we have an opportunity where the lightweight vets outside of the rankings, they're still top of the food chain. I mean, if you look at their record, people who they fought, they still are not willing to give up the old guard. This has a lot to say with how the UFC old veterans are just built different compared to the new fighters. We see this in boxing, we see this on wrestling, we see this a lot in other sports and combat, but more notoriously known in MMA recently, that in top 5 old vets, top 15, you gotta have to be a absolute dog to beat these guys. And you know what? After such a long time, we finally get to see them fight. Now, going over with Drew Dober first. Drew Dober has been in right now tail end of his career. He is older. He is 38 years old at the time of the fight. 37. I do apologize that. Having his last fight won against Kyle Prepolek, he did finish him on the 3rd round TKO. But before that, he was on a 3-fight losing streak, losing against Manuel Torres, Gene Silva, Renato Moicano. He did beat Ricky Glenn, but he lost against Matt Frevola. And before that, he had a 3-fight winning streak against Terrence McKinney, Rafael Alves, and King Green. This is a make it or break it for Drew Dober. Understanding that he is, a dog. I love watching his fights. He is one of my favorite outside the rankings fighters. But this is a make it and break it with Michael Johnson. Michael Johnson, historically we all know, this guy wins the fight that he's supposed to lose and loses the fight that he's supposed to win. Prime example, he is in an incredible run for the longest time since 2013. He hasn't had broken this 2-fight winning streak since then, but he's in a 3-fight winning streak, beating against Daniel Zellhuber, who came in a major 5-1. We saw how Daniel Zellhuber did with Bobby Green over the weekend, but it doesn't outshine what Michael Johnson has been doing recently against Ottoman Azatea, Darius Flowers, Mark Dakisi, Alan Patrick. All right, he's been a guy who is literally stopping guys from cracking the top 15, top 16. Unfortunately, he did have his losses against Diego Ferreira, Jamie Malarkey, and went on a 3-fight losing streak against Stevie Ray, Josh Emmett, Diego Moises, and Clay Guida. 4-fight losing streak. But overall, these guys are tough. They're both vets that for so many years, they're finally crossing path in their tail end of their career. Now, you ask me, who's going to win this? Historically speaking, and not to bring it up in as a joke and stuff, but Drew Dober does really well against certain types of fighters. He has a strong chin. Michael Johnson could crack it, but Michael Johnson, has the momentum with him, but I don't see him finishing Drew Dober. He did go to decision against Daniel Zellhuber, who was finished by King Green, so I don't know if the power is still there. He is definitely going to be much faster, but I think Drew Dober is going to be a lot stronger, and I think Drew Dober is going to be able to try to out-wrestle him and probably finish him on the ground. I do think that my personal pick goes with Drew Dober winning Michael Johnson by the end of the 3rd round. They're going to go a distance. This is going to be a war, and it's going to be who wants it more. Now, this is, again, my personal opinion. I do think Drew Dober has a little bit more in the gas tank after having those 3 losses and coming back with the win. And Michael Johnson, I think Drew Dober snaps his winning streak. Moving on to Rob Font versus Raul Rosas Jr. This is a prime example of the passing of the guard. Currently, right now, Rob Font is on, he lost his last fight against David Martinez back in 2025. And he was on a 2-fight winning streak against Kyler Phillips and Jane Matsumoto but lost the last two against Vicente Figueiredo, Corey Sandhagen, beat Adrian Yanez, which was absolutely insane. Adrian Yanez was coming in as the favorite, but he did lose against Marlon Vera and lost against Jose Aldo. Why is this very important? The names that he has lost to have all been in the top 5 or top 6. From Marlon Vera, Cheeto, obviously he's in a losing streak, so it really has not aged well. Corey Sandhagen, obviously a guard in the top 5. Dickinson Figueiredo, a former flyweight champion / top 5, top 6 in the flyweight, in the bantamweight. David Martinez making a huge come up on his career. So Rob Font currently right now, he is a test for Raul Rosas if he ever dreams to be a champion. Very difficult to finish, has only one loss by submission, and that was literally way back in 2017 against Pedro Munoz. It was by a guillotine choke. Why this kind of concerns me? Because Raul Rosas, he is 21, extreme grappler, doesn't have a lot of power in his hand, has only one loss in his career by decision by Christian Rodriguez. But since then, I mean, he's beaten Terrence Mitchell, he's beaten Ricky Torcios, he's beaten Arokeling, and he's beaten Vince Morales in his last fight back in 2025 in March 29th. Look, this guy has a prime future. Will he be champion? I do not know. But he has so much time in his career. He wants to retire by 25, try to get these champs. I don't think he's going to do it. He just has way too many top dogs from Corey Sandhagen, Song Yadong, Sean O'Malley, Marab, Peter Yan, Umar. That's just not going to go away in the next 3 to 4 years. However, I do think he beats Rob Font. Rob Font isn't known for his grappling. He's mostly known for his striking, but most of the time he has always been lost because he's gotten out-pressured. Raul Rosas is going to be a lot faster. He's going to be a lot stronger. He has youth by his side. And I just think that Raul Rosas is going to finish him on the ground by a submission. I think this is Raul Rosas' big come-up fight before he starts fighting someone in the top 15. And Rob Font is a perfect fighter to set him up. Official prediction is I do think Raul Rosas is going to win by a submission on the second or first round. He's going to come out exploding. Now, to the co-main event. And this is a very split. The next two fights are very, very split. Kaya the Natural Borralho versus Reiner the Ritter. We understand this. Kaya in his entire career only has 2 losses. He is a dog. I mean, if you look at his record, he's beaten Jared Cannonier. He's beaten Paul Craig. Not crazy name, still. He beat Abus Magomedov. He beat Mikhail Oleksiejczuk, Armen Petrosyan. I mean, this guy is definitely one of the weakest in the fighting nerds. Probably better than Mauricio Ruffi just because of the grappling department. But he still has potential to be a champion. It's kind of cringy, kind of fun, but I like his fighting style. He went and fought and put it on a war against Jared Cannonier. He almost finished Jared Cannonier, which no one has. But obviously in his last fight against Nasruddin Imavov, we saw holes in his game, which this kind of concerns me. His striking isn't that elite. He's very funky, very fluid. He's definitely more fluid, but he struggles when he's against like someone who has the same long reach or longer, and the base of them is a heavier boxing style. There's moments that he couldn't take Imavov down, and Imavov was literally beating him from the beginning till the end. There wasn't really any moments that Borralho really was able to catch up. Imavov was just heads up against him. Now, moving to Reiner the Ritter. Obviously, former champ outside of the UFC in 2 divisions. This guy was coming in as probably one of the biggest prospects. And when he came in here to the UFC, He fought 5 times in a span of a year, winning 4 of them and losing 1 against Brendan Allen. Unfortunately, it wasn't that great because Brendan Allen, I mean, no disrespecting his name, but he's not an elite fighter. Brendan Allen has lost to the top 5 guys, but still, it wasn't a very quick turnaround for him. He definitely had multiple weight cuts. Even his most recent look right now, he definitely looks more fresh. Took some time. It was back in October, so it has been at least 5 months since his last fight, compared to that time where he fought in October, fought in July, May, January, November, July, like in a span of a year. Like, he's just been on this run. Now, kind of highlighting both of their wins. Reiner de Ridder, obviously, kind of have the better resume. He's beaten Bo Nichols, he's beaten Robert Whittaker, he's beaten Kevin Holland, Gerald Merkshire, right? There are definitely better names compared to Caio Borralho. I hate to say this, but I think RDR wins this fight. Just because he's an extremely awkward fighter. He is tall for the weight class. He's 6'4". He has a 3-inch reach advantage. And he is phenomenal on the ground. If by any chance it gets to the ground, Reiner de Ridder has a better Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu than Caio Borralho. He has power on his hand as well. Do I think RDR finishes Caio? I'm going to be honest, I do think so. I think RDR is going to finish Caio in the 4th or 5th round. Caio is a phenomenal top 10 fighter, but it just does not give me champion level IQ. RDR has been there, even though during his late stage of the 1FC, he lost against Anatoly Malkin twice. Lost against, that was against Tai Rutolo and by the grappling. But still, a phenomenal fighter. He has that champion experience. I'd like to see RDR fight against DDP next. If DDP does not get the title shot, and Caio Borralho, he's probably going to have to start looking against guys outside of the top 10 if he's willing to stay more active. Finally, we move on to probably the hardest decision of my life. Granted, I am wearing Max Holloway's shirt. This is not saying that I'm going for him, but I will kind of go in more detail of each of these fighters. 2 of the most beloved fighters of the game, full respect, Hall of Famers 100%. You know, Max Holloway, I like to always compare him to the Kobe. Kobe has 2 Hall of Fame careers with number 24 and number 8. Max Holloway has a Hall of Fame career when he got to the title featherweight and past that when he lost it. I mean, historically speaking, Max Holloway's only losses have been against Ilia Topuria, Alexander Volkanovski 3 times, Dustin Poirier, Conor McGregor, and obviously early before that you had Dennis Bermudez, but still, he's only lost against the absolutely top of the greatest fighters of all time. And his recent wins from the lightweight divisions of Justin Gaethje and Dustin Poirier. I mean, Max Holloway has now grown into the 155 division. The power is there. He is still fast. Only concern is that this is the first time historically that he has been dropped in each of his fights. He was first dropped on Justin Gaethje, knocked out by Ilia Topuria, and was dropped by Dustin Poirier. Very common thing, they'll have power. And you know who else has power? Charles Oliveira. But kind of going down to each fighter, going more in details. Max Holloway's game plan here to beat Charles Oliveira is to keep it on the feet. He is the far better boxer, Muay Thai fighter. He has phenomenal kicks. We've seen it on multiple of his fights. He dominated Justin. He dominated Dustin Poirier. And there was 2 rounds that he was winning against Ilia Topuria before he got caught. The only problem I have is Max Holloway has been taken down by lesser fighters. You know, one instant was against Yair. He did beat Yair. However, Yair was able to take him down. And Charles has a phenomenal wrestling. He's an underrated wrestler. Phenomenal jiu-jitsu background. Max is only a brown belt. He is not a black belt to that type of pedigree. And I'm concerned is that Oliveira is able to exploit that. On Charles Oliveira's side, obviously a beloved fighter. He is a berserker. Both of them are extremely fun to watch and never let down. The number one most finishes in the UFC, number one most submissions in the UFC, second most wins on the UFC. This guy is someone that you always go in there knowing that he is a kill or die type of fighter. He has over 35 UFC fights under his belt. An extreme veteran, both of them starting early in their ages. Kind of going over Charles Oliveira's most recent wins is that Charles is on a 1-1 streak. What I mean by that, since he got the title and when he beat Justin Gaethje, he lost against Islam, knocked out Beneil Dariush in the first round, lost against Arman Tsarukyan by a decision, beat Michael Chandler again, but by a decision, lost against that horrific knockout against Ilia Topuria, which Ilia's legacy grows to this day, and he beat Mateus Gamrot. However, the Mateus Gamrot is a big highlight in my influence of my decision because, for one, Gamrot was probably the most well-rounded wrestler in a division outside of Islam before he moved up. And Charles was able to take him down by will, out-scramble him, and able to finish him on the ground. I don't know what Charles Oliveira's plan is, but he cannot stay up and striking against Max. Do I think that Charles can knock down Max? 100%. Charles has that power in his hands. He knocked down Dusty, he knocked down Justin. He knocked out Michael Chandler, right? He has that power. Knocked out Beneil Dariush completely clean. Even though Beneil Dariush has been knocked out 3 times now, he was the first one to knock him out at that time. I'm just concerned is what is Charles' game plan? Is he going to take Max Holloway to the ground? He has more options to finish Max Holloway. But man, dude, I cannot count out Max Holloway in this fight because my concern is whoever wins this fight most likely going to have a rematch against Ilia. And Ilia has already knocked out them both. So they have one more fight in them, which is probably against either BSD or Arman Tsarukyan. We're hearing about Conor McGregor coming back. I don't know. This is a 50-50 fight because both of them have the tools to beat each other. Obviously, Max Holloway beat Charles Oliveira in the beginning, but that was earlier and it was a freak accident. So you really can't say that Max beat Charles Oliveira. And Max has never fought a grappler like Charles Oliveira. In the featherweight, the best grappler he's fought was against Alex, and Alex was able to get him to ground, but Max was successfully able to get back up continuously. Very difficult to be held to the ground, but Ilia Topuria was actually able to get on Max's back. He is a shorter fighter, so he couldn't really lock the legs because of his legs length. But Charles Oliveira is slightly shorter than Max. But that boy is built like a orangutan. He has long limbs. He could grab that triangle pretty quick. Lock up from the back. Get a darce. Go for an armbar. He has so many techniques to finish the fight. Compared to Max Holloway, that his only hope is not to get to the ground and knock Charles Oliveira out, which he has the power. I am extremely split in this fight because it goes down to the game plan of each fighter. But if you put me a gun to my head and tell me, hey, to save your life of your family, you got to pick one. It is very difficult. I love both fighters, and I'm just so nervous. I'm already tensing up because of it. I see Max Holloway beating Charles Oliveira, and I think he finishes Charles Oliveira on the feet by round 4 and round 5. And I'm going to explain a little bit more the reason why. As much as I do think Charles Oliveira is able to get Max to the ground, Max has just been so difficult to keep on the ground. His only loss by submission was against Dustin Poirier years ago. And since then, he hasn't been finished on the ground. And 100% in his camp, they mainly focus on the grappling aspect. I love Charles Oliveira, but Charles isn't really known on his IQ, and his chin has always been questionable. All right, from anybody who has been hard hitters, he has been knocked down multiple times. Justin knocked him down twice. Dustin knocked him down. Ilya cracked that chin. And I'm not saying that Gamrot was a prime example. Gamrot is a good fighter, but Gamrot isn't a striker. Gamrot was coming in heavily in the wrestling department, wasn't able to land his hits, was a little shorter fighter. As much as I think that was a phenomenal performance by Charles, it does not compare to Max's recent wins. I mean, Max's recent wins comes against Dustin Poirier, Justin Gaethje, Chong Song-jong, the Korean Zombie, Arnold Allen, Yair Rodriguez, Calvin Kattar. Definitely better on the striking department. Nothing really heavy on the grappling department, but still. And Charles Oliveira, he's been on a 1-1-1-1 ever since he's lost that title. Officially, I do think that I'm going to go with Max as much as it hurts me, but I do think he finishes Charles Oliveira. Now, I appreciate that for taking your time going over my breakthrough. Hopefully this prediction is hit or not, but this is going to be a fun fight, and I'll see y'all later as my breakdown. Peace.